an unexpected twist that captivated both live audiences and viewers across the globe. Season 18 of America's Got Talent introduced a performance that not only defied expectations, but also redefined what it means to deliver a standout audition. Reporting from the AGT stage, what initially seemed like a modest dance group, 20 girls clad in matching Japanese school uniforms, quickly became the center of viral buzz and social media chatter. Known as AARDI, the all-girl ensemble from Osaka, Japan, stunned judges and spectators alike with a performance that was anything but ordinary. As they stepped onto the stage, there was a palpable sense of curiosity in the air. Who were these girls, and what exactly were they about to do? That curiosity turned into amazement the moment the music hit. AARDI launched into a tightly synchronized routine that was both whimsical and technically astonishing, drawing comparisons to performance art more than traditional dance. The group's unique aesthetic, bobbed hair, serious expressions, and identical uniforms only amplified the sense of mystique surrounding them. In a competition often dominated by vocalists and solo talents, their presence was both refreshing and disruptive in the best way possible. From the very first beat, it was clear that AARDI wasn't just another act hoping for their moment. They had arrived with intent, precision, and something to prove. The camera panned across the judges' faces as they watched in awe, a rare silence overtaking the panel before the eruption of applause. It's not often that a group can take an American stage and instantly shift the atmosphere, but AARDI did just that. Their audition didn't merely entertain, it sparked a cultural moment, one that would unfold dramatically throughout the season. As a reporter tracking entertainment phenomena, this group instantly stood out as more than contestants. They became icons in the making, commanding headlines and challenging perceptions of what global talent looks like in today's digital age. And this was only the beginning. Long before they made their explosive debut on America's Got Talent, the group known today as AARDI was quietly building a revolution in the heart of Osaka, Japan. Officially formed in 2022 under the name Avantgardey, the group emerged not from the glitzy stages of Tokyo, but from a deep-rooted subculture where dance, performance art, and absurdity intersect in beautifully bizarre harmony. As a news reporter covering global performance trends, it's rare to find a group whose origin story feels as deliberately constructed and culturally symbolic as theirs. Consisting of 20 young women, each dressed in the same school uniform with blunt, bobbed haircuts and stoic facial expressions, AARDI began to attract local attention not just for their skill, but for their almost theatrical presence. Their routines were far from conventional. They combined militaristic synchronization with exaggerated, often hilarious facial expressions that disrupted the overly polished norms of modern dance troupes. But their moment of global ignition happened when they unexpectedly shared the stage with none other than DJ Steve Aoki at a live concert earlier this year. That one performance, equal parts chaotic and captivating, was enough to catapult them from domestic novelty to international intrigue. Following this breakthrough, Japanese media, including the influential Saitake Kikaku, dubbed them the enigmatic schoolgirl troupe, solidifying their image as both an artistic act and a cultural mystery. The virality of their TikTok and Instagram content proved their appeal wasn't confined to niche circles. Their videos quickly accumulated over 1.5 million views across platforms, driven by users who couldn't decide whether to laugh, applaud, or simply stare in disbelief. Their choreography, often built around everyday movements with an absurd twist, such as head bobs, stiff limbs, or synchronized blank stares, felt fresh in a world saturated with slick, over-rehearsed performances. Their 2022 appearance at the YouTube Fan Fest in Singapore further cemented their influence, where their pop-up performance at Marina Bay Sands went viral overnight, gathering 1.2 million views in just 24 hours. Viewers around the world compared them to fictional cult characters like Mad TV's Miss Swan and even Edna Mode from Pixar's The Incredibles, highlighting how their image tapped into both humor and nostalgia. Yet beneath the oddity lies undeniable discipline. Every flick, nod, and exaggerated frown is calculated for maximum effect. In a digital age where attention spans are shrinking, AARDI didn't just get noticed, they engineered an aesthetic that makes people stop scrolling. Their roots in Osaka may seem distant, but their influence is now undeniably global, reshaping how we perceive entertainment exported from Japan. Before conquering an international audience, AARDI first had to prove themselves in their own backyard. And prove themselves they did. In late 2022, the group took a bold step by participating in Japan's Got Talent, a move that would dramatically elevate their status from viral anomaly to legitimate national sensation. As a reporter observing the evolution of modern performance arts across Asia, what unfolded was nothing short of phenomenal. Japan, a country known for its rich traditions in theater, dance, and pop culture, isn't easily impressed. But AARDI's appearances on the show cut through the noise like a blade. Episode after episode, they stunned audiences with increasingly creative routines that merged tight choreography with a comedic absurdity only they could deliver. They didn't just dance, they told strange, captivating stories through synchronized expressions, bizarre pacing, and oddly satisfying repetition that somehow struck a chord with viewers across generations. Older audiences saw glimpses of vintage Japanese comedy, while younger fans were enamored by their meme-worthy aesthetic. Their ability to evoke both laughter and admiration in a single performance became their signature. Social media platforms in Japan buzzed with reactions, with hashtags related to AARDI trending after every episode. TV commentators described them as a performance paradox, technically perfect yet hilariously human. The Japanese public, typically reserved in their collective endorsements, began to embrace AARDI not just as a dance group, but as cultural ambassadors of a new kind of artistry that doesn't conform to the Western blueprint. Schools, universities, and even variety shows began referencing their choreography. Their bobbed hairstyle and school uniform ensemble became a fashion sub-trend among teenagers, proving their impact had spilled beyond the entertainment space and into the everyday lives of their fans. For the producers of Japan's Got Talent, AARDI became a ratings magnet, and for the judges, an unpredictable delight. While they didn't take home the winning title, their presence on the show was undeniably the most talked about. It was a moment where Japan, a country often cautious about celebrating unconventional artists, rallied behind a group that embraced being different. Their run on national television solidified the foundation for what would soon become a global takeover. What made AARDI's Japanese journey so pivotal was that it allowed them to refine their identity while receiving real-time feedback from a homegrown audience, an invaluable experience that prepared them for the high-pressure, unpredictable world stage of America's Got Talent. And as they stood on the threshold between national fame and international exposure, one thing became clear. Japan hadn't just watched AARDI rise. As the curtain lifted during the second round of auditions on America's Got Talent Season 18, an air of curiosity filled the theater. 20 young women, dressed identically in black and white school-style uniforms, marched onto the stage with a synchronized composure that immediately silenced the crowd. Reporters in the press box exchanged glances. Who were these girls, and what could possibly follow this minimalist entrance? What followed, however, was far from minimalist. Representing the culmination of years of disciplined artistry and unconventional creativity, AARDI delivered a performance that would become one of the most viral and discussed moments of the season. The group chose to perform to the 1970s Japanese city pop classic Cinderella Honeymoon by the legendary Homie Osaka, a choice that raised eyebrows until the music began and their choreography unfolded like an orchestrated fever dream. Their movements were razor-sharp, every arm flick and head tilt executed in a synchronicity that felt less like dance and more like live animation. But it wasn't just their precision that stole the show, it was the surreal humor embedded within the routine. Their deadpan expressions contrasted with exaggerated movements, creating a rhythmic absurdity that made the entire performance feel like a perfectly timed inside joke shared with the audience. The judges, normally quick to offer critique, were visibly stunned. Heidi Klum praised the group's originality, saying she felt as though she had witnessed the very essence of Japanese soul brought to life. Sofia Vergara called it a never-before-seen experience, her eyes wide with genuine astonishment. Even Simon Cowell, notoriously difficult to impress, leaned into the mic and described the act in one word: genius. Host Terry Crews couldn't contain his enthusiasm, hyping up the crowd in between takes, as if he too had been swept into the spell. The atmosphere in the auditorium was electric, the kind of collective excitement rarely seen outside of finale nights. As the group struck their final pose in unison, the theater erupted into a standing ovation that seemed to shake the stage itself. For AARDI, this wasn't just another performance, it was an international arrival. What set their AGT debut apart from hundreds of other acts over the years was the fact that they didn't cater to American expectations. Instead, they invited the American audience into their world, a world where discipline meets satire. Tradition clashes with rebellion, and performance art wears a school uniform and a straight face. From that moment on, AARDI became more than a contestant. They became a phenomenon in the making, and their AGT journey was only just beginning. In the unpredictable world of talent competitions, the trajectory of a fan-favorite act is never guaranteed, and AARDI's journey on America's Got Talent proved just how dramatically fortunes can rise and fall within a single season. After their breathtaking audition left judges and audiences stunned, expectations were sky-high for the all-girl Japanese dance group. As a reporter following this season's most compelling storylines, few developments were as shocking or emotionally charged as what happened next. Despite delivering consistently creative and energetic performances in subsequent rounds, AARDI was suddenly eliminated before the finale. The announcement triggered a wave of disbelief among fans, many of whom had regarded the group as the strongest contenders for the championship title. Social media erupted with confusion and disappointment, and several entertainment journalists noted that their elimination marked one of the most controversial decisions of the season. Viewers accused the voting system of undervaluing originality and cultural uniqueness in favor of more conventional American-style acts. But just when the curtain seemed to have fallen on AARDI's AGT journey, a twist emerged that no one saw coming. In a dramatic reveal, the producers announced that AARDI would return to the competition, not through standard advancement, but as a wild card entry into the grand finale. This decision wasn't just a technical inclusion, it was a cultural statement. The show's producers had clearly recognized the groundswell of public support and the media attention surrounding the group's absence. Fans rejoiced with hashtags like hashtag AARDIback and hashtag Justice for AARDI trending across multiple platforms. Even fellow contestants expressed admiration for their return, acknowledging that their absence would have left a creative void in the season's climax. Backstage, the mood among the group was reportedly a mix of gratitude and renewed focus. They hadn't just been given another chance, they had been handed a second act, an opportunity to reaffirm their place not just in the finals, but in the hearts of millions. The Wildcard twist reframed their narrative from tragedy to resilience, and from elimination to elevation. It reminded audiences that sometimes the most compelling stories in reality television aren't about easy victories, but about comebacks born from collective passion and undeniable talent. AARDI's return electrified the finale roster and reignited global interest, setting the stage for a showdown that now carried even higher emotional stakes. In the newsroom, we knew the story had just evolved from a quirky novelty act to one of the most talked about redemption arcs in AGT history. With their unexpected wildcard return secured, AARDI was poised to redeem themselves and reaffirm their place as the most unforgettable act of America's Got Talent Season 18. But fate had one more test in store. As a journalist tracking high-pressure moments behind the scenes of televised competitions, what happened next became one of the most intense stories of the entire season. Just 2 days before their highly anticipated finale performance, AARDI faced a sudden and potentially catastrophic obstacle. An unforeseen copyright conflict forced the group to scrap their entire planned routine, music, and staging. For most acts, this kind of disruption so close to the final round would be paralyzing. Weeks of rehearsal, despite their triumphant return and a performance forged in the fires of last-minute adversity. The grand finale of America's Got Talent Season 18 ended in a way that left millions stunned and emotionally conflicted. AARDI, who had become the heart and soul of the season through their quirky brilliance, visual storytelling, and infectious charm, did not win the competition. As a reporter covering the emotional highs and lows of global entertainment, the atmosphere in the aftermath of the results was as heavy as it was silent. Fans from around the world had rallied behind the group, sharing their routines on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube in the hopes of boosting their visibility, believing they were about to witness a historic moment for international representation in mainstream American television. But when the final votes were tallied and the winner announced, the absence of AARDI's name sent a shockwave through the AGT community. Within minutes, social media exploded with a mixture of heartbreak and outrage. Hashtags like hashtag AARDI was robbed and hashtag they deserve better trended across multiple platforms as viewers expressed their disbelief. It wasn't just about losing, it was about what that loss represented to their supporters. A perceived failure by the system to fully recognize creativity that doesn't fit into typical Western templates. Even judges appeared visibly surprised, with backstage murmurs suggesting that internal expectations had positioned AARDI as potential finalists, if not champions. But while the results failed to reflect their immense contribution, their impact was undeniable. Fans and entertainment outlets alike continued to refer to them as the true winners of the season, a title rooted not in trophies, but in cultural resonance. Their performances had captured something few acts ever achieve, a sense of collective joy, admiration, and uniqueness that transcended language and geography. They became the act that everyone talked about the next day, not necessarily because they won, but because they dared to be different and succeeded on their own terms. Viewers praised their courage to stay authentic, their refusal to dilute their cultural identity, and their commitment to entertaining without compromise. What was perhaps most telling was how the disappointment didn't diminish their support base. In fact, it grew. The narrative that followed was not of defeat, but of legacy. AARDI's elimination, while painful, became the catalyst for an even greater story. That sometimes the most iconic acts aren't crowned on stage, but immortalized in memory. And as the lights dimmed on that final night, it was clear to anyone paying attention, AARDI hadn't lost. They had simply outgrown the stage. When the final curtain fell on America's Got Talent Season 18, AARDI may not have walked away with the title, but what followed was a level of international popularity that few winners ever achieve. As a journalist monitoring the post-show trajectories of breakout acts, what unfolded for AARDI in the weeks and months after the finale was nothing short of extraordinary. Their social media presence exploded, fueled not just by nostalgic clips from their AGT performances, but also by an outpouring of international love, commentary, and fan-made edits that turned the group into a digital phenomenon. TikTok alone became a playground for AARDI-inspired trends, with fans mimicking their signature bobbed head movements and deadpan expressions in comedic homage. Their follower counts surged across all platforms, and suddenly, this once niche Japanese dance troupe became a global symbol of performance innovation and cultural pride. Offers for interviews, appearances, and collaborations began pouring in from music festivals, talk shows, and even fashion brands intrigued by their unique aesthetic. In Japan, they returned home as heroes, appearing on national broadcasts and being featured in major magazines as a new face of artistic youth culture. But perhaps more significantly, AARDI's influence started resonating beyond just entertainment circles. Dance studios in South Korea, the Philippines, and even the United States began incorporating AARDI-style routines into their curriculums, defined by precision, character immersion, and intentional awkwardness turned into art. For Gen Z and younger millennials, AARDI embodied a rejection of the overly polished in favor of the memorably peculiar. They weren't trying to be flawless. They were trying to be unforgettable. And it worked. Brands noticed too. Fashion houses began citing their uniformed look as part of a rising neo-nostalgia trend in East Asian pop culture. Meanwhile, digital influencers began replicating their haircuts and costume styles, creating a ripple effect in visual trends across youth platforms. Even AGT's official accounts continued sharing clips of AARDI weeks after the show ended, a rare move for acts that didn't win. The group's team handled their newfound fame with strategic brilliance, launching exclusive behind-the-scenes content, vlogs, and bilingual messaging to reach their growing Western audience without alienating their Japanese roots. What stood out in this post-AGT explosion was not just the volume of attention, but the depth of connection. Fans weren't just entertained by AARDI. They felt represented, validated, and creatively inspired. They became a symbol of how art doesn't need to conform to win. It only needs to be fearless. In an era where virality is often fleeting, AARDI's cultural staying power proved they were not just a trending topic. They were the beginning of a new genre. As AARDI's fame surged beyond the boundaries of traditional talent show success, one dream began to crystallize among their members and loyal fan base alike: a full-fledged performance residency in the global entertainment capital, Las Vegas. For most international acts, the Las Vegas stage remains an elusive fantasy, a distant goal symbolic of global legitimacy and mainstream recognition. But for AARDI, that dream is fast transforming into an inevitable reality. In my coverage of post-AGT career paths, it's rare to see such rapid and serious momentum behind a non-English speaking dance act, especially one so defiantly eccentric. Yet conversations are already underway. According to multiple entertainment insiders, promoters and venue managers in Las Vegas have taken note of the group's massive online traction, their cult-like global following, and their remarkable ability to fill digital arenas with emotion, humor, and precision. What makes AARDI a uniquely perfect fit for Vegas isn't just their style, it's their unpredictability. In a city famous for the fantastical and the over-the-top, their brand of performance, half dance, half surreal comedy, is a natural match. Think of it, a nightly show filled with hyper-coordinated chaos, absurd visual sequences, and perfectly deadpan expressions set to retro Japanese pop. It would be unlike anything the Strip has ever seen. More importantly, it represents a cultural shift, one where Eastern artistry doesn't adapt to Western norms, but instead reshapes the expectations of Western audiences. Sources close to the group have hinted that international performance contracts are already in discussion, not just in the US, but also in Dubai, Seoul, Berlin, and even Paris. But it's Vegas that holds a special place in the narrative arc of AARDI's journey. From the schoolyards of Osaka to viral stardom and the AGT spotlight, a Vegas residency would not only validate their global appeal, but elevate them into a rare echelon of performers. Those who cross borders without losing their identity. The possibility of seeing their synchronized absurdity under the neon lights of Sin City has ignited both fan anticipation and industry buzz. And while details remain under wraps, early promotional teasers and speculative blog reports suggest a thematic experience rather than a traditional dance showcase, potentially merging multimedia projections, live storytelling, and of course, the group's beloved bizarre routines. For AARDI, Las Vegas isn't the end of their journey. It's a new canvas, a massive international platform to unleash the full spectrum of their career. As the curtains draw to a close on AARDI's whirlwind journey through America's Got Talent and beyond, what remains is not the echo of a single missed victory, but the lasting impact of a cultural phenomenon that transcended language, geography, and genre. From a reporter's standpoint, acts like AARDI are lightning in a bottle, rare, unmanufactured, and impossible to replicate. They didn't just participate in a competition, they shifted its narrative, proving that authenticity, humor, and unapologetic weirdness could not only survive on an American stage, but thrive. Their story is a blueprint for a new generation of global performers, one where the path to success is no longer defined by assimilation, but by defiant originality. They entered the world's biggest talent show wearing uniforms and deadpan expressions, and exited as global icons wrapped in the kind of loyal fandom most mainstream artists could only dream of. While the season ended without them taking home the grand prize, AARDI won something far more significant: emotional real estate in the hearts of millions. Their routines became conversation starters, cultural bridges, and viral symbols of creativity unleashed. Judges, fans, celebrities, even casual viewers couldn't look away, not because they were perfect, but because they were unlike anything we'd ever seen. And in the increasingly crowded space of digital entertainment, that difference is everything. As they now chart a course toward international stages, possible Vegas residencies, and more original productions, one truth stands unshaken: AARDI didn't need a trophy to validate their worth. They arrived as outliers, rose as revolutionaries, and now stand poised to become one of the most recognizable performance collectives of their era. Their blend of structured chaos, absurdist charm, and cultural specificity proved that entertainment doesn't need translation, it needs soul. And AARDI delivered that in spades. This isn't just a story of a dance group that almost won AGT. This is the origin story of a global movement, one bobbed head at a time.